Nice hat.
Thanks, man. My wife converted me to a Boston Red Sox fan years ago.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I grew up in, my brother and I, we grew up in Southern California, so I was a big Angels and Dodgers, even San Francisco Giants, Padres, West Coast, teams all the way. And let me tell you, when you date a woman and she takes you to Fenway Park for the first time and you're sitting in Fenway Park, I was converted. I don't know what you call that, but I had an experience.
Religious experience, yeah.
I bought this hat at the stadium, and I if I don't have to, I don't take it off, man.
Yeah. I went to a Red Sox Yankees game at Fenway in 2004. Actually, the season that they ended up winning the World Series, or it was 2003. But we went and we sat in center field and we watched the Red Sox beat the Yankees 18-1 with an in the park home run. Yeah, and I bought I don't have it with me, but yeah, I have a Red Sox hat from Fenway or from Yawkey Way. But
sure.
Yeah. No, I'm from New Hampshire, so yeah, man, you got it. Once you go there, man, it's a religious experience because you realize that Fenway Park opened about a couple weeks before the Titanic sank, and it's but really, and April 1912, and you sit there and it's like, oh, holy cow, there almost is like a religious like.
I don't know what else to compare it to. You're right.
It's very odd. It's like, it's like I couldn't put a scientific name on it, but you definitely almost feel like a century of games in there. It's
That's right.
Yeah, it's like a well-worn hat or like a good
pair of jeans, man.
Yeah.
On a Friday night.
Seriously. Yeah, no, it's a good cast iron pan. Yeah, that's what it feels like. It is, man. You go there and you're like, oh man. That's why there's so much resistance whenever they try to tear it down or put something new up. I swear to God, people in Boston start rioting.
Oh, you're not going to mess with those people. In fact, my wife's from Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And when she worked so hard over the years to get rid of her Bostonian accent. She went in the National Guard. She was in the Army National Guard for 8 years and served during up until Desert Storm and everything. And I tell you what, because she was being made fun of because of her accent, she worked hard, got rid of her Bostonian accent. And it's too bad because I'm in love with it. Yeah. So the only time it comes out is if I'm in the doghouse and she's chewing on me a little bit, all of a sudden that Boston accent comes out. And I love it, but I don't love it that it's coming at me that way. You know what I'm saying?
No, it comes, man. I mean, all my family on my dad's side is from New England. I know what you're talking about. I love it, man. Yeah, don't get rid of that.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Her dad's accent is so thick. I need a translator. I think it's the opposite of Swamp People down from Louisiana.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched that show, they have subtitles.
Yeah.
They're speaking English.
Yeah.
But you need subtitles to understand them. Her dad's like that too. It's just amazing.
I did my first 2 years of college at Valdosta State University, Southern Georgia, and I had lived in Atlanta for 9 years. And I thought I was, I understood Southern accents at that point. I vividly remember the day I moved in. Like, my brother and my mom dropped all my stuff off at my dorm. And I guess I had walked by a girl who wanted to come, introduce herself to me. So I remember I, was in my dorm and I, knock, knock, knock. And I opened the door. And I remember not understanding what she was saying. I legitimately was, very attractive, but I was just like, come again? At first I said I didn't hear you, and then I finally had to fess up. I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I do not know what you're saying. And she said, so she's like, hi, I'm Chris. I was like, oh, hey, yeah, nice to meet you. It is Swamp People. You kind of get used to it. See, I've never heard a northern accent so bad that I couldn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe that's just the South. I don't know. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's for you're like, are you talking English? Are you? Yeah, man. I don't know, dude, man. Whoa, man. You're like.
Speaking of the South, man, you wear a Boston hat down here in the South. They look at you. You're some white Yankee Yahoo, whatever. They're just going at it, and we're 3 hours away from St. Louis. So you've got the Cards out there, the Cardinals, and they look at me like, I don't know. They're like, you're not even from this planet. And you're wearing that Boston hat down here.
Jealous.
That's right. That's right. I tell you what, my students, they get extra credit. They wear a Boston hat to school.
Hey man, fair enough. Dude, my roommate was a TA. He came to do his master's at UGA, but he went to Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
But he came down and he was getting his master's, and I don't even remember what. But yeah, he was a TA, like a teacher's assistant, and one of his students was this was in fall 2013, was Todd Gurley, the like star for UGA. And I remember Billy used to be like, I'd be like, Billy, how does sports influence your grading? And he was like, it doesn't, except for Todd Gurley, because Billy loved UGA football. He was like, Todd always gets an A for perfect attendance. I was like, has he ever come to class? He was like, not once, but
nope,
he had perfect attendance. I was like, Billy, you're part of the problem.
That's right. That's right. Perpetuating that problem, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, what's going on?
Living the dream. Are you kidding me? Living the COVID-19 dream. Unlike some of the other rest of the part of the country, living the nightmare of it. But I mean, we're just confined to the house still. The worst thing of it is I can get information, online or TV or whatever on the national level, but locally, jobs and stuff like that, just not a lot of communication going on. As a teacher, I'm just spitting out things still for students. I don't even think I have maybe close to 50% participation right now. But I don't even think that's an accurate number necessarily. So, but we're kind of left in the dark. In fact, where I work, I just saw an email today, and the superintendent is retiring this year. They've got an interim in there right now. So you've got this changing of the guard right in the middle of this disaster, and you're just going, but we still don't know if we're going back at the end of April, May, not at all. No idea.
It was like that the head of the, I don't know if he's still there, but the director of the FAA, his first day, September 11th, 2001.
Oh, yeah.
Baptism by fire. Good Lord in heaven.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but I was going to say, so.
Yeah.
I always forget because not everyone watches all the episodes. Introduce yourself real quick.
No problem. David Libby. Had multiple careers, or at least beginnings of careers in the past, kind of a jack of all trades. One of the ones that I really enjoyed at the time, from Desert Storm till about 1998, for about three and a half year period in there. One of the jobs I held in the United States Air Force was a historian, and I was primarily writing current modern history on the F-117A stealth fighter and kind of its operations. Everything's pretty boring, quite honestly, during regular day-to-day situations. But anything happens out of the ordinary, and it's like stirring up a beehive or a fire ant's nest or something like that, and just all hell breaks loose. And, even from a historian point of view, you've got to document it for future learning so you don't repeat the same mistakes. I mean, that's kind of the mantra of history anyways, and it's something that I've I've internalized over the years just from my own life. Is like, I want to learn and not stop learning to the day I die. Simply, in one sense, I don't want to repeat my own past mistakes, But so I had that career in the Air Force. After a while, got out, got my degree in English eventually, got kind of 2 degrees in English. So here I was, a professional writer who hated English in high school for 4 years. I thought, just shoot me, gag me with a spoon. It was kind of an 80s saying, hated English. Ended up writing professionally as a technical writer, as a historian. It was ugly, let me tell you. Maybe take some English classes, ended up with 2 degrees in English, also third one in education. Now I'm a high school English teacher, and sometimes as much as I love the aspect of teaching that I love, is that every day it's different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you get a societal picture in public education, especially myself, because I've taught in high schools in California and coached out there, taught in the middle school and high school area of New Mexico, and now I'm out here in Tennessee. And so unlike many of my other students, teachers, I'm kind of widely experienced when it comes to teaching across the country. And so I have a snapshot from the West Coast to the Southwest, and now I'm east of the Mississippi. Yeah, not the Northeast perhaps, or not the North, but now down here in the Bible Belt, you just get a bigger picture of what society is looking like in the future generations of students. So just a wide variety of different experiences growing up, but some of the fondest ones are I think back when I was in the military and just had a great time. In the military.
And right now you're is the correct term homesteading?
Correct.
Yeah. It's
correct.
It's interesting that you're doing it's because of, of the time that in my life that I've met you,
sure.
in the last, known you for maybe 2 weeks. It just so happens to be during like the first global or the global hasn't been a global pandemic since 1918, and the world is shut down.
Right.
And I just so happen to meet this self-sufficient homesteader. So what made you want to get into it? I get it. Like a lot of my family, like I said, is New Hampshire. Man, everyone up there, they all got, places out in the mountains and, infinite distances from civilization, but they've all got solar panels. They've got well water. They've got, you get your firewood from your backyard. If you really wanted to, you could go out and shoot a deer. If you really needed food, they have septic tanks. They have big oil tanks, but they get them they use those sparingly, only when you really need it. Right. And but even that they get those filled very sparingly. But they are off the grid. They have satellite TV, satellite internet, but they are off the grid. It does not matter if the grid shuts down. What would shut them down would, aside from a nuclear blast, it would be an
shut me down too.
Yeah, me too. It would the only thing it would be the EMP from a nuclear blast that would fry their electronics. That doesn't matter whether or not you're on a grid. But literally, aside from that, they are self-sufficient. I guarantee you, their lifestyle has not changed one iota since coronavirus, because they're tiny little communities. No one really leaves, so no one's going and catching this thing. Right. And it's just like, I guarantee you they're all up there doing the same stuff they do every day of the week. Just campfires, four-wheeling, jet skiing, snowmobile, hunting. They tune in for watch coronavirus at night. They probably have a drinking game about it. That's how they are, man. And
the ping pong balls in there.
It's like it's like the meek will inherit the earth. It's almost like you look at it and you're like, oh, they're not in civilization. And now it's like, man, if I had to go dip out and go to the hills, that's where I'm going, because not only it's not that they're just surviving, right? It's not that they're surviving and thriving. And whenever I go up there, there's just like the biggest sense of community, and there's something different when you're all helping each other. Everyone's chopping firewood. Everyone's, someone's truck gets stuck. Everyone comes and help. It's not like, it's not like they're Amish. It's not like old fashioned. Like, they all got iPads and iPhones and GPS and touchscreens. It says 2020 as it is. It's just, when you look outside, you're not surrounded by skyscrapers or suburbia. It's just, untouched mountains and crystal clear water and blue sky. Yeah, and it's like, that is, to me, that is like, okay, like, seems like that's the answer. Because it's like the last place you want to be right now is Manhattan or suburbia or anything. Because you're like, man, I'm in a house, but if it really hit the fan, if anyone wanted to come in, they would just break a window. What is it? What is your house? Drywall? Boards?
That's right.
They'd break through. Versus you're up there, and it's like, good luck getting there, and first of all, good luck finding them. There's no roads. There's no addresses. It's not they're at 1, 2, 3, 4, logging road. It's, it's find this city 6 hours north of Boston, and then you're going to want to go into the woods on an old logging trail that may or may not be closed or washed out from rain, and
turn right, go 50 more miles.
Yeah. Seriously, like shut all the windows because it's dusty and you're bumping up and down.
That's right.
You're not gonna have cell service. So yeah, if you get stuck, shoot a flare, like and it's like, and even if you did find them, good luck breaking into any of those log castles. Like those walls are 3 feet thick, and if you do get in, good luck taking on a bunch of blue-collar mountain people who are armed to the gills. They are the definition of a well-regulated militia. And I'm looking at it more and more, and I'm like, man, if I can get my podcast to get going and, like, make me $1, nothing. I'm not looking for millions. If I can just get enough to, like, shit, man, I might just get, like, some satellite internet and just go bug out up into the hills, because their lifestyle has not been interrupted.
There was a couple of weeks ago, I think I watched a clip on YouTube real quick. Now check this out. One of the other backgrounds I have too is a financial background. I was a banker for a while, and then I was studying to be a stockbroker, and so I kind of keep up on that and just kind of mash these ideas together. And there was a clip I think on YouTube, and it was this guy who up in the mountains of West Virginia was the caretaker of some type of what do you call it when you I just had it. It's a timeshare. Think of it. I don't know if this is what it was, but it seemed like a timeshare type of opportunity where he had concrete bunkers. He had 2-story log cabin type of situations. They're all full with food and water. And what he does is for the members of that community, I think he charges them $1,000 a month or a year. I don't know how it goes. And so that obviously it sounds like it pays his salary or something, but he helps to maintain this so that in the event people need to leave, if they're in the city and they need to leave and they're a member there, they can go there and they have a place to sleep, food, water, shelter.
I've read about those places.
It sounds interesting for me as a money making side, as a stream of income, right? Where I can build something like that and then timeshare it out, whatever you want, membership. But then it also sounds creepy because it sounds cultish in a way, and something white supremacists would only do that. And you're going, how do you, if you want to be respectable, how do you advertise that? Because
you don't. It's
man.
Backstream. It's backstream contact. It's you're a newly minted millionaire CEO. Hey, I know a guy that knows a guy. It's
right.
I've always kind of thought about the interesting side of like the end of the world sort of prepping industry, just from an industry point of view. Not even people that do it, not hate, not condoning, not condemning, just looking at it from just purely a business standpoint.
Right.
You don't want to sell stuff for stuff like coronavirus, where like the world goes on pause, but it will come back. You want to sell people the apocalypse, end times stuff, because this is why. Something like that, right? A nuclear bunker, 50 feet underground, lined with lead, a Faraday cage, got some HEPA air filters. Got all of that. Get all their money. And you get it during just peacetime. Like, let's pretend coronavirus wasn't going on. It's just It's just April, whatever. And you're getting a steady $2,500 a month from these millionaires, and you get to enjoy that money in the here and now in a functioning society.
Right.
When society collapses, you don't need to follow through. You can just shut the door. Hey, come up. Hey, I have a ticket, sir. Oh, you do? And I've paid you this much money. And that's when you really see that money is just paper. Really?
That's right.
Because I've got a 12 gauge in a bank vault. Good luck. You got this rich guy out there in a Bentley in the middle of the woods. Like, you let me in, and it's like, no, I don't care. What do you mean I paid you? I don't care. I'm keeping all this. But it has to be the end times, because if it's not the end times, if it's just coronavirus, once it all settles back down, they're gonna legally destroy you. Right. If not, take out a hitman and take you out. or your business will now fail because it's going to be like, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Right? So You want to only sell like nuclear.
You walk the edge, man. You walk that line.
You only want to sell nuclear Armageddon, because when it hits the fan and they come knocking and be like, I don't know you. What are you gonna do? Who are you gonna call? The cops? There's no cops. There's no, that's when it's real raw power. It's not money or contracts. It's who's got a shotgun and clean water, right?
But here's where it's real for me. You asked me the question, how did I get started with homesteading and everything? And it all connects anyways, and it may for some of your viewers as well. And it's weird. I was in New Mexico at the time, and I went into a thrift store, and because I like reading, I actually like reading physical hard books or whatever, right? But I'm going through their used book section, scrolling through, and I'm like, oh, look at that one. And it was a book, and I'll have to get the title for it if you're interested in later. Mm-hmm. But basically, it was a book about the world's oil and the economic impact on the world's oil. So just imagine for a moment that one of the arguments in this book was, okay, OPEC controls the majority of the oil, at least they had up until Trump really took office in one sense, and now we're kind of dictating terms now. But imagine different spots in the world are sitting on these deposits of oil, crude oil, right, that have to be mined out, pumped out of the ground and processed. Okay, what happens? What is going to be the policy of those governments once they believe that they have now reached at least the halfway point of their oil deposits? Mm-hmm. So that means they have consumed, processed, whatever you want to call it, half of what they believe is in the ground. Mm. How is their policy going to change? And if you think about it, if you look at it from a world economic standpoint, so much of the world's wealth has flowed into places like Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And that's why all these folks in Saudi Arabia, are just ungodly, stinking, filthy rich, and why Saddam Hussein, even during Desert Storm, literally had a golden throne.
Oh, yeah.
You should ask Daniel about that next time, and if he hasn't talked about it, can't remember all the details of your interviews with him, but I think he may know something about Saddam Hussein's either golden throne, literally sits on a throne, or it was just a glorified toilet. Yeah. But I mean, either way.
Please tell me Dan has a picture of him on the throne.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
That Dan's got a selfie.
Yeah. Well, so okay, but so I'm reading this book. And I'm looking around. We're living in about a 10-minute walk from the university in the second largest city in New Mexico, Las Cruces. And we're less than a quarter acre. We're on top of each other, not like a bigger city like obviously LA, New York, but still where you're having to call the cops because of college parties and domestic violence, all this stuff. And it was just kind of getting worse. But I remember just reading this book going, what is going to happen to the world's economy once the shift of power changes because of oil? And I started looking around my house, and I'm going, I couldn't believe just how much stuff, material things I had in my house that was created from oil.
Plastic, yeah.
I mean, just everywhere you look, it seems like, or that oil is kind of the fuel source for the machinery to build something else, even a book maybe, just in one sense it's connected that way, right? If it's not electricity, it's oil based. Yeah. So I thought, well, what happens when that disappears? I mean, what happens if we can't, America, get our oil going, which we are now, but eventually, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe in my kids, maybe in my grandkids' lifetime, that's going to change. So if that's that consumer mentality, our economy is based on oil and in a very real aspect, just like the rest of the world's, what's going to happen? Well, I can't afford things. We went through, if you remember, that was during the time where gas prices across the country were hitting $5 a gallon in certain places. And I just thought I had to commute at least 45 minutes one way to just go to work. What if I can't afford to fill up my gas tank anymore because my salary is not enough keeping pace with cost of living and what's going on economically? I'm going to take my army cot and my mummy bag and a change of clothes and sleep in my classroom and use the PE shower to shower and shave and do everything in the morning and just come home on the weekends, and I'm 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So this idea started kicking around in my head, the dollar, oil. We need to be more self-reliant, because just in a city, we had a tiny yard, less than a quarter acre, and we tried to eke out a tiny little vegetable garden. But because we're in the Southwest, it fried so much of the vegetables, and we had to plant in shade, if you can believe that or not. So they wouldn't get direct sunlight, and we couldn't even produce enough to feed our family on a regular basis. So that was just, I guess, the wheels of just got turning. I talked to my wife kind of in conjunction with that. Being a public school teacher, I advocate for homeschooling. Our second oldest daughter, we didn't like what they were doing with her academically in grade school. We pulled her out. We had best friends in Albuquerque. They did homeschooling with their daughters. I saw how well it worked. I'm like, okay, this is going to look weird. People are going to make fun of me or whatever because I'm a public school teacher or homeschooling. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I know the difference, can speak with some, not just experience, but some authority and expertise in that area. And so this all kind of mashed together, and eventually we got to the point where we're raising the kids that we still have in our household, but we weren't tied to staying in the desert. Water, huge issue in the desert.
Yeah.
I had so many friends that were farmers. How did they keep watering their crops? How did they provide for the country? Because these were bigger farmers. These weren't just local farmers for themselves. So these were, national farmers, if you will. And what I saw out there in the desert is the Rio Grande River, supposed to be the second, arguably, or the third largest river in the United States as a national resource. And 6 to 8 months out of the year, it's bone dry. And so these farmers they pay every year for these water rights.
Yeah.
So they could flood irrigate out there in the desert. And they're receiving less and less water for the same amount of price they're paying every year. Well, now they have to pump from wells.
Yeah.
And they've pumped so much of their well water out, and it's not being resupplied, right? Recharged. It's brine water now. So it's this foamy, salty kind of smell to it. Not stagnant, but you just go, how is that healthy? Yeah. But that's what they're relying. So they're fighting that battle out there. I'm going, if it hits the fan out here, so close to the border of Mexico, et cetera, how are we going to survive? And now we've been out here 3 years in Tennessee, and 9 acres just about. We're planting. My wife's been planting like crazy. Probably the largest garden we're going to have up to date. We're not 100% off the grid because we didn't buy property that far off the grid, if that makes sense. Yeah. We were looking for some type of happy medium. For example, if I can get out of teaching and I could do this full time, we can sell what we make. Everyone needs food. I've got some friends out here that are big time farmers. Yeah. Be it Tyson Birds, be it crop share. They own hundreds, if not thousands of acres. They work it. And that's the one thing they tell me all the time, David, I really admire what you're doing, because when you think about the basic needs of human society, we need shelter, we need water, we need food. Yeah. I guess we can run around naked if we have to, but I prefer some clothing personally because I burn in the sun.
Yeah, a little too white. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's where it all got started. It's weird. It's just a book, and eventually you start finding like-minded people. Yeah. And you share ideas off of one another. And respectfully, we have friends back in the desert that go, based on what's going on right now with the virus thing, we really admire and respect you guys. And we're kind of jealous because you're able to do things that if we can't simply go to Walmart and buy groceries, we've got things going on here in our small farm, our homestead, that we're good for a few months. We don't have to. We might have to adjust our eating, maybe down to one big meal a day.
Sure.
but we're not going to go hungry. And that's the thing that city folk are missing out on. Either I think they need to network and have friends that live out in the country and will buy food like chicken and beef and vegetables or whatever, so they can have that type of supply system, that network for them, or they need to come out here and kind of learn how to do all this stuff.
I feel like with coronavirus, you're probably going to have more people like you that are going to be offering like, hey, you know, $1,000 a month, you will have a room reserved.
Or $1,000 a month or whatever it is, we will plant you
this much
acreage or whatever, maybe not acreage, but, you know, proportionately based on your membership plan.
Yeah. And if you don't if you don't use it, like, you'll get 500 back. Like, so just what I mean, I don't know any business, but like, I think you're gonna see. I always get this weird feeling when I'm in cities, just even years before coronavirus. There's this one here in Ocean City. There's this one sort of just seedy old building, and it's just like all your touristy crap, all your, you know, cheap T-shirts and posters. But it's this old building, and they've just got inventory like you wouldn't believe. And I never go in there. I used to walk by it doing work because I would just look at it.
Right.
And it's an old building. No, not in like the last century. It doesn't have any fire codes, and it's just stuck to the ceiling with just like dried out just posters, knickknacks, hats. And I'm just like, I don't go in there because I'm like, if someone dropped a cigarette, you'd have like 20 seconds to get out before it would be. I mean, think about like a brush fire. You know, you clear it all. You gotta throw a match on there. You count to 30, and this thing's already dangerous. Like,
that's right.
Fire goes like fire is it's quicker than anyone really thinks. Not that I'm some expert, but it's the same feeling when I go into cities. I kind of get that. It's like when you're in like downtown Manhattan. Maybe I'm just an anxious person, but I'm always like, aside from just like, okay, well, if there's a terrorist attack, it's going to be here. Not even that, though. It's just like, I could never stay there. I could never live there. Because it'd be like, if anything ever happened, any coronavirus, any sort of like disruption of the status quo, a deviation from our societal homeostasis, it's like, it's that feeling of being in the tinder box. It's like, you're right there. You know, it's like, where are you going to go? You're in the middle of a herd, and, you know, there's a lion.
There's nowhere to go.
There's a lion on the mountain, and there's a lion up on the hill, and everyone sees it, and there's a stampede. You're done. There's just, and again, it's like, you know, we always, you know, well, I'm in my house, and it's safe. And it's like, your house is safe when, like, society's safe, because, like, there is the deterrent of, like, yeah, I'll call the cops. Like, you know, if you're smart, you'll have a gun. But, you know, it's the idea. It's like, yeah, you're in your house, and what keeps people from coming in, whether or not they think you own a gun, is like, it's understood that, like, police will be here, they will get fingerprints, and they will find you. And it's hit or miss. You're in America. You don't know if there's a double-barrel shotgun on the other side of the window.
That's right.
Shout out America.
That's right.
But ultimately, it's like, let's say during coronavirus, let's say it just got 10 times worse, and there's a delay in emergency services. What if there are no cops? If someone's really looking at it like, I want to get in there because I don't have food for my kid, ultimately, a window is just a pane of glass. You could take everything. You don't even need your hand. I mean, you just take a phone case and just, you know, punch it hard enough. You're in. Then you can open it.
That's right.
The walls, again, it's my house. It's safe. They're very safe against, like, rain. We're very good at keeping minimal shelter. But these things are made competitively to be sold at the lowest price.
That's right.
This is not a bank vault. You really want to, man. In an apocalyptic scenario, you really want to. You have any decent sized truck, just hit a side, go, you know, punch through the garage, back up, punch through a wall. You're gonna hit drywall. It's drywall. You might hit some studs. You might hit a couple 2x4s and mess up your truck. But you could literally bulldoze a wall with any automobile. I'm not saying you won't get hurt. Airbag will probably deploy. But, like, if you really want to get in, you can get in. There's no the power and the deterrence. It's all, you know, it's like when there's a median on the highway, there's a literal concrete wall. You can't get on the other side. But it's just a yellow line. My older brother John used to say, he'd be like, Hey man, don't forget that yellow line's just an agreement. It's an agreement. You're just hoping every car that comes the opposite way, you're just hoping that they are as sane or more sane than you.
Yeah.
Because it's just an agreement.
You talk to my brother, he says that yellow line is a suggestion.
Well, Dan's a special guy. Yeah.
He's definitely special, all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's really special. We love you, Dan. But it's like there's no real. And again, it's like, well, I have food. There's the grocery store. If the prices go up, I got money. But it's like, what about when push really comes to shove and money kind of shows its face for what it is? It's just paper, man. You can burn it for fuel. You can have one good bonfire. You know, you can cook something. But there's a lot of like real power and real strength when you go up to these places in the middle of nowhere or down south. And it's like, they have gardens. They're surrounded by a literal million acres of lumber and what's the term for it? Man days of meat, meaning how many days of meat are there, or how many meals are there? I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of deers.
And you know, Tommy, too, there's all kinds of aspects to this. So many benefits, like you're suggesting there. A term that's been thrown out, I'm sure. I know I've heard it here since the coronavirus hit the U.S., and it really started kicking off. And it's something that my wife and I have investigated a couple of years ago when we first moved out here. But you've heard the term of victory gardens?
Yeah. World War II.
World War II, basically. You know, we're still living in a country where the majority of people, obviously that may not have lived in the cities, but the majority of the country, you know, they had their own garden in their backyard. And it's crazy to scroll through YouTube victory gardens and you see some government videos that have been digitized, because you know they weren't digitized back then. They're still in black and white. And even the government was like, here's how you preserve potatoes, you know, and here's how you plant. And they were totally promoting that stuff. That self-reliance is something that's Americans have been defined by since the formation of our country. We're self-reliant. And again, hopefully looking for a silver lining with this issue, I think some of us are starting to remember that now. I think we're either forced to, because we're staying at home, we got nothing else to do. I might as well read, educate myself, whatever, talk, or self-reflect. That's a silver lining. I'm like, wait a minute, have your own garden. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on the internet with folks in cities that have raised beds, they have rooftop gardens. Now, it's going to provide them a little bit of food, but it's not going to be the quantity of food they're going to need for a prolonged siege, if you want to call it that. You know, a couple weeks, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months, not even close. But the idea is there. So it's in the cities. It's certainly out in the countryside. We're learning a lot. The other benefit is my younger children, they're learning how to work hard, and they are not going to be attached at the hip with technology. Are they on technology? Yes. Is that their driving force? I'm not going to let it be their driving force in their life right now. They may decide that later when they're adults, but they can do that when they're adults. But right now, they're going to learn the value of working hard, planting crops, weeding the garden, harvesting the crops, taking care of the animals, processing those animals. Because my youngest daughter, she's like, don't make me do it again, Daddy. Don't make me, you know, what's her job? Her job is, so Daddy cuts the heads, drains the blood, all that stuff, make sure they're dead. And then he hands supposedly the dead chicken to his daughter. And his daughter has a pot that's boiling water, checking the temperature. She's supposed to dunk the bird in there real quick, a couple times or whatever, loosens up the feathers, and then she hands it off to Mom, and they start. No. Well, we pluck the chicken, of course, and process it. She hates that job because apparently
was one of them alive?
Yeah, I thought it was, you know.
Nervous system was still firing.
Oh my goodness! It started hot water flying everywhere. She is screaming in a terrified.
I would too, man. My voice would be higher pitched than hers.
tears, you name it, right?
I would too.
And I thought, sorry, we still have 10 more to do, baby.
Yeah. Wipe your eyes.
She'll never
Let's
forget
roll.
that. I didn't mean to do that, but she'll never forget it. So
yeah, it's
solid values, man. I'm telling you, solid values.
Yeah, it's even with just this podcast, there's something to me, like, I just want to get enough money just to get an apartment and to pay for food. You know, it's not, I mean, who doesn't want $1 billion? But to me,
Sure.
It's like what I'm gunning, like whenever I describe what I want an apartment. I want to be able to pay for my own health insurance. I want to pay for groceries. You
don't want the government paying that for you?
No.
Are you kidding? Come on, man.
No.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, and
right there, baby.
Yeah. And but whenever I describe that to people, they're like, "Dude, you could just go get any job." And it's not like my goals are a Lamborghini and a penthouse. It's like they are very low bars. But to me, it's not that, if I just had a normal job and I went and got that, I don't think I would appreciate it. For me, the goal is like, if I can just get that bare minimum that I could get from working at Burger King, but if I could get it through doing a podcast, doing something I love, and knowing that I built it up and created it and created my own source of wealth, that is a level of satisfaction that most people will never experience in their life.
Correct.
And that's one thing that that's what I wanted to ask you is, I could definitely imagine is a massive part of your life when you're more self-sustaining. Just, again, it's one thing if you go and buy a chicken breast. It's another thing if you raise the chicken, feed it, kill it, skin it, boil it, and cook it. And it's like, oh, I did this.
Right.
There's a certain, chopping firewood and lighting a fire, right? You have one in your living room up at our lake house. There's something, it's, if you turn on the heater, it's whatever. But when you go downstairs and it's freezing out and you stack up and grab a couple pieces of birch and you run back up and you throw it in the fire and you feel it's a completely different type of warm because you're like, I did that.
Right. Right.
Do you find that you have that experience with
you have a deeper appreciation
yeah.
for stuff, right? You just
not even special stuff, normal stuff. It's just
like you said, flipping the light switch on and off. You know what? I love electricity.
Sure.
We want to get to the point where we can get some solar panels and get off the grid that way, or at least have my electric meter run backwards so they pay me each month. I would love, that sounds good to me. But how much you just take that for granted. Could we live in a house that we rely on candles and stuff? Yeah. And I tell you what, we would learn how to make the candles ourselves too.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go buy them all, But now, see, that's the thing about homesteading. Unless you're starting off with homesteading and you have a reserve of cash, so that means either you've already have a reserve of cash, you've been have an inheritance or something like that. If you're starting off like my wife and I, man, I'm a school teacher for crying out loud, so I can't quit my full-time job right now and work full-time here unless I develop some other streams of income. At least in your case, here's what I'm hearing. I just want to replace what I'm making as a teacher, which you're familiar with that. They don't make a whole lot.
Yeah.
But if we're living off of that right now and I can just simply replace that for now.
Replace that stream.
I'm done. I'm not going back to work, coronavirus or whatever. I'm done because now I can work full-time out here, which my wife would love. Being home, it's this dichotomy right now where, wait, I see you, husband. That means you need to get your butt out in the garden and start planting. Which she's right.
Yeah.
She's right. But I'm also online. I'm still teaching during the day. So I know it frustrates her, it makes me frustrated because I'd rather be out there.
Yeah.
Now, I come from, at least my dad's side of the family, grandparents anyways, they understood the value of having your own garden, raising your own animals. They came from nothing in one sense, doing those types of things. So some of that trickled down to myself and my younger brother Daniel, and so we have that inside of us. And so I want to be able to, at the end of the day, not my regular job, but I have to do that while I'm also doing this, put my head on the pillow knowing, wow, that's pretty neat. That's something that I or my wife or my kids did with their own bare hands, and they've actually accomplished something in their life.
Yeah.
Besides the academics, which of course I'm not negating that because they need to be intelligent. But, and again, I don't speak from a long line of farmers. I mean, I've heard farmers that say there's life in the soil. You know, they hold it in their hands, they smell it, and they go, that is life right there. Yeah. That's what it's all about. I'm like, I can't say that. That's not what but I do know the value of hard work, which I think many of us innately do, though.
Yeah.
It's just, what does that look like for people nowadays?
Yeah.
That don't live in the type of culture that my wife and I have chosen now to live in.
Yeah. And that's not to say that living in the city is bad. It's not good.
Right.
It's not for me, you know.
Sure.
It's like it's like if we have different favorite colors, your favorite color isn't bad. It's just not my favorite color.
Right.
And I have to understand that, and you have to understand that. So I don't, you know, it's not like, oh, city folk. It's not, hey, dude, I love skyscrapers, dude. I've loved skyscrapers since I was little. I've read every, Sears Tower, 1,454 feet tall. World Trade Center is 1,351 feet tall. Burj Dubai, 2,708 or 2,841 feet. Chrysler Tower, 1,046. You know, it's like I love skyscrapers, so I love cities. The bigger the metropolis, the better. I just don't want to stay there, and I'm scared of heights. I don't even want to go up. I just want to from a distance.
You saw the Lego tour, didn't you? Because it came through. We have something out here called Discovery Park of America.
I built
and
Legos.
Let me tell you, you would have loved this.
I built Legos till I was like 18,
yes,
man.
You would have loved this. So it was early last year. They had a VIP, where members out there, they had a VIP viewing of a traveling museum type display that was towers of the world all built in Legos.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I tell you what, I played with Legos growing up as a kid, but seeing that, I'm going, I was one of those guys that even with the instructions, I couldn't build whatever it is I was supposed to build. So to be able to build these things, scale replicas of those skyscrapers.
They're like 40 feet tall.
Without plans, but it's Legos. It's amazing. They're huge. But you're right. That I love going down. I'm not an introvert.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an extrovert because I enjoy talking to people, interacting with them. I can be real happy as an introvert being out in the country.
Yeah.
But I like going into cities and shopping, walking downtown, seeing the arts and entertainment. I love that type of stuff too.
It's cool. There's a reason why, you know, people have been going to the big city forever. I mean, there's something about, you know, I've probably been wearing the same shirt for 10 years, but man, if there isn't something cool about going into like a 6th-floor subterranean mall and it's all glitzy and the escalators and the food courts and like, it's awesome. It's awesome. Who doesn't like going to a skyscraper and you just look up and it's like, oh my God, you know, like
it's pretty amazing. When I walked downtown in Boston for the first time, you know, my wife was showing me the sights. I'm going, it's pretty cool. I like Boston, honestly. I like downtown.
The history
Boston.
is magic. It's like the cobblestone streets, and those are literally from the old like shipping routes. Literally the old like wooden and sail, because they'd use cobblestones as weight. Because, you know, they'd come to the colonies, they'd pick up all the sugar and the spices, they'd go back to England and they'd dump it all. But for the ship to come back, you can't have it really light because the waves will throw it around, so they'd fill it up with rocks. Well, what do they do when they get here? They got to dump the rocks. Where are the rocks? That's what all those old streets are in Boston. It's like there's a certain level of, like, magic. Yeah. And, I mean, I can get the fulfillment standpoint of, like, living in the city. Like, you and I are talking about producing our own thing.
Right.
I mean, I could definitely, like, I could see the fulfillment of if you live in, like, a penthouse in a city. Because it could be... I'm just speaking from that theoretical point of view. It'd be, I have worked so hard and I am so successful that I don't have to toil in the dirt. You know, I have room service. I'm a big executive in a penthouse. I have room service. I have maids come in. You know, I could see that fulfillment. Be like, I have achieved this lifestyle for me and my wife. Right. You know, so it's a different form of fulfillment. Right. You know, just not for the apocalypse.
That's right.
So you wanna create a podcast?
Right, and one of my things
Just
is
start. Just
probably
start.
because I've had just start.
Dude.
Being a jack of all trades over the years, it's kind of hard to know what direction to go with. I could just talk about a bunch of random topics, or you could be focused.
Look at what I do, man.
Right?
Look at what I wanted to start a podcast from 2015 until 2019, and I finally did in December 2019 because I realized I was like, I'm just gonna start. People are like, what are you gonna talk about? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, how am I gonna start? Well, I'm like, to get on guests, it's hard getting guests when I'm like, hey, will you do my podcast? And they're like, yeah, can I see it? And I'll be like, I don't have any episodes. They'd be like, no. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I found one of my friends. I was like, hey, dude, will you do my first episode? He's like, sure. It was just some stupid conversation. But I did that with several friends until I got like 10. So now I could link the podcast and be like, here are my episodes.
There you go.
They've each got 10 views, but whatever.
Right.
And then I could get more. And then it was, reaching out and finding first it was just any friend I could, and then it was, how about interesting friends? JP Variano from, he was my older brother's friends from high school. His mom was the lunch lady. I know he flew drones in the Air Force. I'm going to have him on a couple times. Hey, I've got a buddy named Nick Phelps. He also flew drones. Hey, Nick, why don't you come on? Hey, I've got a buddy named Dan Libby. Hey, I've got a brother named David Libby. But that's how it's, and this is just one example, but this has happened with different guests where it's spiraled into these things. And now I'm having guys on that were in Delta Force, like,
that was pretty interesting. I like
that. And they did CIA operations. I'm trying to get on a guy who I'm trying to get on one of the Blue Angels, but it's all cascading into like, but dude, if I had just done what I had been doing for 5 years and like trying to plan it out and get it all perfect, I'd still be doing nothing. It was when I finally decided, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start, and I'm just going to admit to myself that the first couple are going to suck. They're just going to, not only just like technologically, like the resolution was low, the audio is terrible, I didn't know how to edit. I literally didn't know how to edit. So it'd be like, all right, bathroom break, and there'd just be like 2 minutes of silence, and it'd be like, and we're back. And it was like, how many people were listening to my podcast and then just got silent, and they're like, screw this. And I just kept doing it, and now I've got a microphone, $100 microphone.
Nice.
Audio's a little better. I still don't know how to rip audio directly, so I just have it right next to the speakers. I have it. It's up on like a stack of boxes.
Nice.
So it's right by the speakers. Okay. It's all right. I have a laptop. I don't have an editing computer. So what do I have? I got a couple fans from Amazon. They're these like plastic cased fans. $20. They're really quiet. They blow the air around from under, so you're not heating up your laptop, because screen recording, I figured out through trial and error, it's really loud, and it gets to a point where you can't hear the podcast because it's just because the fans are running. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to go and buy a $10,000 computer. How am I going to make do with what I have? Okay, get these little fans going. All right, figure it out more. All right, and okay, after 50 episodes, I was like, it kind of looks bad that I'm just in this room and there's a bunch of boxes and old laundry. All right, flip the desk around and put a backdrop. Okay, and it's just, finally got a chair. I used an old rocking chair, literally from like World War I for the first 50 episodes, and was like, let's get a chair. And it's just getting better. And then it's like, all right, I learned how to, like, when you upload the video and you can put in like key terms for people searching. So instead of just uploading it, I could put up, like, for this, it would be like, homesteading, self-sufficiency, coronavirus. Not only that, it's like, if you can get different effects if you put the same word in the title, the description, and the tag. Okay, now you can get more views. And it was and still is, and I imagine will continue to be, a brutally raw trial and error. It's like the game Operation. Okay, not going that way. All right, not that one. But as you go, you start to see the outline of where you're to be working in. So once you've figured that out, you're no longer buzzing, whatever the buzzing may be, microphone cutting out, overheating. Then once you've established that outline, which I think I've got to now, knock on wood, I'm at episode 74. Now it's like, okay, now I can get into like the content, like Do I find planned podcasts are better? No, I find they're dry and not natural. Okay, so I have on guests. Listening to my own episodes, oh wow, I interrupt a lot. Okay, so I should have a notepad next to my laptop. So when you say something, I go, okay, I write it down and I can come back to that instead of losing that thought.
Right.
Just little stuff. Okay, like I don't want to be losing my episodes because each one of these takes a lot of time to produce. So I got an external hard drive. Like, all right, so as soon as it's uploaded, I put it on the external. So in case anything happens to the computer or the YouTube channel. But just little stuff. And not only that, is I start to find, what am I interested in? I used to be like, what will be an interesting episode for guests? Well, if you do that, it's just going to be boring.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, like, what do I want to talk about? I had on David Libby last time. We talked about aliens. I got it all out of me. At the beginning of this podcast, I remember thinking, I was like, all right, let's talk about aliens again because people like that. But I was like, we already had the discussion. What are we gonna do? Talk about the same thing again? And I was like, hey, we're in a global pandemic, and here's a homesteader. And there, I don't plan any of this. Now we have a great conversation. And coming full circle, then it leads to crazy things like talking about how the podcast gets built.
That's right.
And it leads to this. It's, yeah, man, I would just say, like, there's some, as you know, they're just some basic tenets, man. It's like, work hard and be consistent. But aside from that, dude, it's a wildly personal experience. And some people, they have super polished, edited podcasts. That's great. That's not for me. That might be for you. You might get a GoPro and like go and film your gardens or whatever, you know, cooking a chicken or planting or skinning a deer or whatever. That might be more your style. You might do little 5-minute podcasts. Maybe you do big. Have
you ever found that you say, you know, what is interest to you, Tommy, to be able to make podcasts around that? You ever find, if you're like me, there's so many different things that I am interested in. So I could do a section on, you know, all this planting and skinning deer and heck, shooting squirrels and making squirrel soup, and that was our anniversary meal when I got home last October. She said, hey, surprise, it's our anniversary. Really? What's for dinner, honey? Squirrel soup. I'm like, let's do it. Let's learn, you know.
Perfect, yeah.
But I also like politics.
Yeah.
I like talking about those hot button topics that people are scared to talk about, or they're afraid they're going to hurt people's feelings. And I'm going, dude, the Second Amendment allows me to have all these guns in my gun case over here so that I can blow your face off if you try to usurp my power and enter my house without my permission.
And harm my family. And not only that, you can also...
You know, it's true, though. I mean, or if the government decides to do that. So either way,
tyrannical
that Second Amendment gives me that right as a citizen. So I love talking about the evils of public schools. I love it. I love it. But my comrades in arms there in the public school system, a bunch of Democrat hippies or whatever, but got some good folks that I work with, but man, they won't open their eyes, man. So I love talking about that stuff. So I have this problem. I think I just kind of circle around and do stuff, but I think you're right. Maybe over time, kind of find your niche and see. Do you pay attention to viewer response, or have you got that part of it yet? Well, what I mean is, are you getting suggestions through that pipeline so you can think of future possible episodes? I don't know.
It's still so small that I don't get a lot of comments.
Sure.
It's at a point where I get I was gonna say I was just kind of laughing, like I was just thinking today, like this is off top, but what you just said about, you know, like my liberal coworkers, I just kept thinking, like, what the funniest part about life is that you know that they are all together. Like I know a great guy named David and Tommy, but those idiot conservatives, if they're open their eyes. I saw a quote from like the 60s, and it was, the protesters create the police create the protesters. And it's like, you all need each other. And I was just like, that's kind of beautiful. In a time of such divisiveness, it's kind of beautiful to be like,
can't we all just get along?
Exactly. Or even if we don't get along, just acknowledge that, like, you almost don't want to all get along, because then who are we going to argue with? You know? It's like, it's...
And my biggest pet peeve, man, is people that are not informed with the issue or the topic at hand. So, again, talking just with other folks, I'm going... Now, I'm not saying they have to spend as much time in research and reading and talking about it as I have. And I know there's people out there that do it so much more than I do even. but at least I want to have a somewhat intelligent conversation with people about those hot topic issues. But they just spout something emotional, halfway intelligent, or they just repeat something that they kind of heard in a sound bite somewhere and pass it off as their knowledge. And it's hard, at times to have conversations like, because you can't get deep into it. You go, I have an uncle that I've tried to talk to him about the Roswell alien incident for years, and anytime I bring it up, he has his he has this can. No, it's real. It's just all a cover up. And I go, and yet this guy's an engineer, so he has a logical, analytical mind that works off of evidence and proof. And so then I show him that evidence and proof, and he goes, no, it's just too much. I just want the boiled down version. I'm like, you want the dummy version, but yet you say you want all the evidence. I have it.
Unfortunately, Dave,
you don't want to listen to it.
Unfortunately, I'm with your uncle because I want to believe. There's part of me that's like, okay, that makes sense. You're a government operative, aren't you? It's
well, that was that part of it too.
Yeah.
So
what I was gonna say is like, but what's so great is like I find that like early on I was like, I want to have this very specific type of podcast, and I found when I did that I began to hate it because I was like, I don't want to have this conversation again.
Gotcha.
I had on like a lot of my military friends, and I was like, this is great, but it was starting to become all we were talking about was America, rah rah, Second Amendment. I love it. I'm as pure American as you get. I love it, but I was like, man, I want to switch it up. So I had on an author from London who wrote a book about all the South American psychedelics, like the ones that like the Indians and the Amazonians and all like the religious, the ones that the Native Americans would take.
Sure.
And here's this guy, balding, British accent, and he wears this like colorful like shaman robe. And I have him on, and I'm like, complete change of gears, and it reinvigorates me. It gets me going. And so I'll have on a couple people like that. I'll have some more like hippie characters, and then I'm like, let's switch over into like the opposite of hippie. So I have on a guy that's like an MMA fighter. Talks about how he loves just crushing noses. Like, that's cool. And then I switch to like a computer engineer. So I go from like, brute force bashing like cavemen to a guy that works at NASA and is like coding for rocket direction systems. Nice. So, but by not keeping a niche, I just allow myself to just go towards what I like.
Sure.
And when you go towards what you like, you will inadvertently create interesting episodes because you can't fake enthusiasm, True. It's like if we had the same podcast again, if we just repeated today's episode, it was just, so you saw the Roswell, it'd be like, I already asked you everything I wanted to ask. So it'd be, I'd just kind of be firing off canned answers, right? Versus instead, we're getting really into it today about homesteading and oil and cities and podcasting. And that's what, like, that's how you stay interesting, because you can't fake this enthusiasm that we're having right now, right?
That's right.
So it's, and so for someone like yourself, you could go from squirrel soup to, then you can go to F-117s. Like, who else can make that kind of jump, man? And it's
to go hunting squirrel with an F-117 with 2,000 pound laser guided bombs.
No, you won't have any squirrel left.
The pinnacle of my life, there. Let me tell you.
Laser sighting in, there it is. Have your daughter with the laser target finder.
Oh yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to make any soup because you just like vaporize like 100 feet.
But I needed to clear some tree line out there anyways.
I need to see the
ground ready for farming.
F-117 irrigation, man. Just
That's right.
Just carpet bombing. I get some B-52s, carpet bomb some irrigation. But that's what you can do, man. Is like, you can talk about that. You can go from Boston to Roswell UFO to public school teacher to F-117 to whatever.
Hey, and we won't even get into this episode about Compton, LA area. So I'm not.
You lived in Compton?
We got stories down there too. So we grew up in Southern California. So we got stories. I mean, I got stories.
Exactly.
We got stories.
That's what I mean. Is like.
And again, we need to find a time for Daniel and I to get on here.
Yes.
And just hit record.
Yes, because dude, I love Dan, but he never responds to my text, man. He just ghosts me. And then he'll show up and be like, "When are we doing a podcast, bro?" And I'll be like, "You can't have your cake and eat it too, man." If you don't, like, you respond to me, we set up a podcast. But Dan, I'm like, hey, Dan, why don't we do it? And he'll text me like, hey, bro, you want to do a podcast today? I'd be like,
well, now you know how I feel when I'm trying to communicate with him. I'm going, I don't hear from him for months.
Yeah, worried sick.
I'm like,
I'm like a mother. I'm like, Dan, are you okay?
He's been traveling, as you may know, right? He's been traveling across the country, and we had to tell him and his wife, and I love them, but I'm going, but you can't stay here.
Yeah.
You've been traveling from California to Illinois to Tennessee.
You're picking up
and
every virus.
You've been in these coronavirus hotspots.
Can't come here.
When my wife is looking at me going, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the wife wins.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
You're right.
And
we'll catch up later.
Yeah. And then, but seriously, I'll be texting Dan, won't hear back from like a couple weeks ago. Hadn't heard back from him in like 2 weeks. And I was like, well, maybe Dan kicked the bucket. Like, I guess and then I get a call from him. It's like 11 p.m. on a Friday. And I'm like, oh, shit, it's Dan. I got a call. He's like, what's up, brother? And I was just like, where are you, man? I haven't heard back from you. Been worried sick. He's like, yeah, I just got finished driving through Vegas. We're out under the stars right now in the middle of nowhere. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm getting out of California. Coronavirus is getting crazy. Got a trailer. He's like, got some guns and food. And I was like, and he was like, let's set up a podcast. I was like, are you okay? like, do you need help? Like, no, brother, I'm good. Like, let's talk tomorrow. Okay. Another week goes by. I'm like, I have on Nick Phelps, and he's like, hey, Dan's joining us. Bing! Dan jumps in the conversation. I'm like, where have you been? And he's like, he's just watch the episode with him and Nick, and he's like, he's like, oh, just visited, grandkids. And he's like, how you been, Tom? And I was like, I thought you were dead, dude. Like, worried sick about you.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah,
Welcome to my world.
But like, yeah, dude, that you need to start a podcast, man. And like, I can tell you like the bare minimums, like, literally, like I have QuickTime Player. It's like a movie software that's been out since like the 90s.
Yeah. I remember that with dial-up.
Yeah, you click on that. Yeah, it comes up on the little bar up top, but you just hit one of the options is screen record. Captures the video and the sound. There are much more efficient and professional ways to do that. Episode 74, I'm still screen recording. I got a better microphone because I wanted to up the quality a little bit.
Sure.
But dude, aside from that, man, I compress the video. One of the options is you can compress it from like 4K to, because I figure people are listening. I don't need to upload it in 4K. So I just upload it in 720. But aside from that, man, finish screen recording.
I'm learning all kinds of stuff too with just teaching, because I just right before I got on with you, I was on the other laptop, and I've used a Camtasia program, and there's Fillmore and there's other types of programs like that too. But Camtasia I've used in the past to create little videos for podcast or students or audio, you know what I mean? So you can go in there and edit. So I have a little experience with that. But I tell you what, I think I recorded maybe 15 minutes worth of material, and it takes a while for the computer just to process as an MP4 video, so that it can be uploaded online. And, with some of my students, they might have to download it first in order to play, because I haven't established a YouTube channel or something to upload it there. But stuff like that, I'm learning. But and
it's all those problems are the same ones I ran into, and it's just the first episode I didn't realize that screen records in 4K. So I was like, I uploaded like an hour. The first podcast was an hour, and I know you got to go, so we'll wrap it up. But the first podcast was like an hour. I didn't know what to expect. I was like, we have good internet. Started uploading. I just let it upload overnight. And I came back the next day, about 24 hours later, and it uploaded 10%. And I was like, this can't be right. And I realized I was uploading in 4K, man. It was like 150 gigabytes. And I was like, why am I uploading? Because the screen record, this thing, that's not even in 4K. So it's like there's and I was like, okay, so like there's a lesson right there. Compressed it down to 720. The longest podcast I've had was 4 hours and 27 minutes. Compressed, that one was maybe 20 gigabytes, and I was like, okay, all right, I don't need to be uploading in 4K. But it's just little stuff like that. Like,
sure.
You don't need a microphone. You don't have an external, because it does take up memory, and you don't want to just upload it to YouTube and hope it doesn't get deleted. So, but dude, you can grab a waterproof, fireproof, dustproof external from Amazon, 5,000 gigabytes, like $100. It's
wow.
This brand new laptop has 250 gigs. So it's just getting external. Yeah.
I have an external hard drive that I bought years ago. It's 75 gig.
Yeah, dude, that's...
So you're telling me your laptop... See? And that's... I
laptop
love that.
has 250.
But
yeah.
I do have to get going there,
Tony. I was going to say, yeah, this one, dude, this one's 10 terabytes. It was $100. 10,000 gigabytes. But yeah, man, it's...
Wow.
Next time we talk, I'll text you. Let's set up another one. I want to... You better have a progress report on how your podcast is coming.
Sounds good.
Just start.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care, brother. Stay
safe. Send me the link when you're done, bud.
Will do.
Take care.
Yep. Peace.
All right, peace.